towards Earth and dissipated. Like it disappeared as it went down. You're absolutely, I think you hit it right on the head where you said, they're not just gonna be like, here we are, and all of a sudden all these big ships are gonna be in the sky and people are gonna be like, oh my God, they're here. It's like on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Get us used to the idea, other people, hey, we're here, we're not hostile. We're here to help, or we're here to enlighten, or we're here to, bring a new wave of life for you, because that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Me too. I hate politics, but I think that if enough people are having experiences and on an individual basis, and I feel like a lot of people are coming together, like people are really starting to connect and share experiences and knowledge and bounce things off of each other. I know that's what I say to people in messaging, hey, I see you experience things too. That's great. Let's bounce things off of each other. There may be things that I don't, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Perception is everything, but it's going to take us connecting and uniting and raising our voices to get anything done.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T.
To prepare, and that's why in 2017, that set a clock of 10 years. And why Lou Elizondo earlier in this year said, just find a hobby for 5 years and, it'll all be out in 5 years. And he said that this year, so that was 2027.
Like you said, it's like bleeding through, coming from another dimension. They do travel interdimensionally, and when you're coming from a different dimension, like we're in a 3D and they're coming from 4D, it bleeds through. I had never experienced that many things in one night like that. It's like they gave us a light show or something like that. It was amazing. We saw huge, like these two, it looked like a huge ship just go right across the sky. These things that look like feathers, these white feathers that dusted across this. It was amazing.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm here with my friend Danielle. She's been on here before, and she often catches a lot of UFO footage, pictures, weird experiences, shadow people. We're going to talk about a bunch of that stuff today. And welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. And you were just telling me right when we were hopping on about an experience that just happened for you. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I guess we'll do the huge one, the ship that I saw on March 11th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my house just doing stuff earlier that day. I worked during the day, came home. I always unwind. I go outside, I ground, I listen to tones,
Right.
stuff like that. It was about 8 o'clock. It started to get dark out. And, we talked about the pull. When you feel this pull, I call it the pull. A lot of other people do too, where you just feel this pull, like you want to go outside. Something's telling you, go outside, look, there's something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I look out the window, and there it was, this huge craft. I mean, that's definitely what it was. It was huge. And you saw the lights, and they were rotating. So I'm like, oh my God. So I grabbed my phone and I went outside, started to film it. It went around my house, literally from the side front, all the way around, to the side, to the back, and then literally went downward towards Earth and dissipated. Like it disappeared as it went down. I always say disappeared because I really don't think they're disappearing, or just like
Right.
they're still there. We just don't see them um anymore. But yeah, and it came down, and then that was it. It was gone. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And it's definitely something that I've never experienced before. And I've experienced a lot of things, but that was the first for me. So it was definitely, and also the buzz that you get, any experience, like it's almost like a high that you get off of that experience. Like it's this energy was like, it was intense. It was great. Absolutely. I'm still like reeling from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it, did you see like a solid mass with the lights or anything like that? Or was it just,
No, it was
um,
just like a row of lights. Honestly, if
mhm,
I could sharpen it better, we could probably see a lot more, but it was really dark and I just saw the lights and them rotating, and you could see
right.
across the sky, and it like tips and goes down towards the earth, and it was really close. I'm really bad at perception wise,
Hmm.
but I would say it was as close as maybe a plane would be up in the sky,
Right.
like maybe closer.
That's
So
cool.
yeah.
And it's, and the funny thing is too, it's like we were just talking about this when it comes to like taking pictures or taking video and then people just saying it's fake or whatever. And it just, it, you know, it isn't because you're the one who took the video or you captured it. But then at the same time, they're like, oh, this looks like CGI or this or that, or the quality is blurry. And it's just like, have you ever tried to record a video of something in the sky at night from a cell phone? It's just like, it's not a DSLR camera or anything like that with like, you know, a super zoomed in lens or anything. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting closer, a lot closer, since now we have, you know, I still remember the beeper. So to, you know, have a phone in your pocket where you could FaceTime someone is incredible. And, you know, now we're able to take video like at any time without those. I don't know if you remember the disposable cameras where you
Yeah.
could just buy them. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's always a, like we mentioned this in the last episode we were talking together, that there's always a cop out, you know, like if you don't want to believe, you could say the video's fake, you can say it was made up or whatever. But it's, I always say that once you have your own experience, it's hard to dismiss it. It's like you end up jumping on board with everyone else who is saying they saw something after having your own experience.
It's funny you say that because the comments, because I posted it on my TikTok, and a lot of the comments, like one was just like in all caps Starlink, and it's like honestly, it's like I feel like people are just like it's regurgitation. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not even from their own mind. It's literally something that they saw or heard, and they're like, "This is it." Like, why don't you just Google? Like, it literally frustrated me because all one has to do is Google. I put my location there. I put the date. The time is on it. Like, seriously. I let everybody know this was literally like an hour ago on the post when I posted it. So they know the time, the date, the place. Look it up. Download the app. See where Starlink train was. Nowhere near Long Island, New York. You know what I mean? Like it's not there. So that it falls by the wayside. It's
Yeah.
not like look it up. Just take a second and do that.
Yeah.
And of course I look things up. I have the app too for Starlink, just so when I'm outside and I'm sky watching, I can see, okay, what is this? This is, and you literally point it at the sky and it tells you what everything is, the constellations,
Right.
there's the satellite, when the satellite is coming, it has the times. And there's no Starlink hasn't been above Long Island, New York, that train in almost a year. So
Right.
Red X, not
You got to check out her TikTok, guys. It's, she has some pretty cool stuff on there, and I've shared some videos in the last time I had you on, and there's some good stuff. And one of the most amazing ones that I loved is just that you see the orb and it's just moving, and then it like stops, and then it moves like that, and it goes back, and then or even the one that you had the tree in the foreground and you just see it moving around. Those were really cool. um, and they're starting to be seen or noticed more and more everywhere. And you know, we have this whole thing with Congress now, and even Representative Luna mentioning on TV, she was saying that anytime it's mentioned interdimensional beings or interdimensional aspect with her conversations in private with Grush, she said, pay attention to that.
So this is what I'll say. I'm going to reiterate, we can't talk about specifics and what we got into, but what I can tell you is what Gresh shared with me in an unclassified setting that I firmly believe in. I believe that he's telling the truth. I think that he is a credible witness. And what I can also say is one thing in particular that really caused me to be concerned about this whole thing is that Grush had stated to myself, Representative Burchett, and another member on the phone that there were people that were hurt hiding this information and keeping this information safe and or trying to come forward with this information. What I can tell you is I believe that claim after now leaving.
How much
that's all I'll say now.
Do you think that the administration is sending the right people? Do you think that you guys are actually talking to the right people in these classified?
I think that they are sending the correct people on paper. However, there is, and it's become evident that there is an overclassification and that we are continually being stonewalled. My one concern is that we are authorizing money that is supposed to be spent on certain programs, and yet there is compartmentalization in which Congress doesn't have access to oversight in those programs, and that's a problem.
Are you more concerned leaving now than you were going in?
I feel the same. I think that I'm pretty much at the same space that I was. This entire process has been what facts do we have? Again, the credibility of the witnesses is incredibly important, and I think that we have very credible people.
How much of this is the distinction of saying, okay, there are certain programs that we have that are dark programs that we need to be very careful about letting that information out? Some of that can be attributed to what people have said versus this conversation about Grush and some of the claims he made in the open hearing about non-human biologics.
You know, as of right now, we didn't get into the specifics of that in there, but what I will say is that it has become apparent that there is a movement, whether it's within the intelligence community or not, to prevent us from finding out more information on this. And so we are going to do what we need to do as investigators to continue to pull on whatever strings and see where they lead. I think it's incredibly important to listen to the specific words that Grush uses. You know, Grush never said extraterrestrial or alien. He said interdimensional. I think that that's incredibly important because those are the types of things that when we go in there, there's just certain things that I think that it's important that you guys listen to on that. So, thank you guys.
Can I get clarification?
Yes, one more.
You said interdimensional. I mean, now, what does that term, is this something that bends time and space? What are you getting at?
I think that Grush, when I had talked to him on whether these were specifically extraterrestrials or alien in origin, he said interdimensional. He refused to use certain terms, and I think that's incredibly important because I think that that's really the question we're all wanting to know, right? And so I'm actually going to have a sit-down conversation with him and ask him to come back and talk to us directly because it seems that we are getting more information from the source than going into a skiff and then not being able to tell you guys what we're talking about.
Is this stuff that we just as humans might not be able to understand if it's interdimensional?
I think that we can understand it. I think that it's just, it's an approach, right? I mean, like, remember, we just now for the first time in history really had Congress have whistleblowers come forward credible that we're telling the entire world that there is something other than human life forms. Grush said that those were interdimensional beings. He refused to use extraterrestrial and alien. I think that's important to note, but I do have to go feed my baby, so thank you guys.
Thank you.
Right after she had the private UFO briefing, which we still don't really know what they said in that meeting, but right after that hearing, she mentioned that, and the other representatives were starting to take Grush's allegations more seriously. It is interesting now that they kind of look a little nervous after coming out of that briefing.
Honestly, I feel like sometimes I know that they, are like, yeah, we want to know what's going on. We want transparency. We're fighting to get the truth out. And at the same time, and I know I've said this before, and I think I said it the last time we spoke about it. Like, I kind of feel like they're playing both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, we're on your side and we're trying to, and I just don't believe that even if they got the whole truth, would they really come out and tell, like, these are the same people that lied to us for years and years and years.
Right.
Now we're expecting them to come and fight and speak for us and do a 360. It's not going to happen. And it's funny that you mentioned because, yeah, more people are seeing this stuff. And I believe the reason why is because not only are we, I mean, we can all feel that we're in some shift, that things are starting to feel different. And I think that the reason why more people are seeing, it's a collective. Like, you ever,
Right.
I mean, like, the collective consciousness is real. Like, that energy is real and it's very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one person is strong. Like, it's not like we're praying, but yet, you hear the expression power in prayer.
Right.
right? Vibrations, energies, frequencies. We all do that. And they even measured, the energy. They can measure energy levels. And they measured energy levels above places, Mecca, when people are praying, and the energy levels went up significantly.
Hmm.
So these are things that I think this is why more and more are happening, individual basis. And we have talked about this too. And I
Yeah.
think I think you hit it right on the head where you said, they're not just gonna be like, here we are, and all of a sudden all these big ships are gonna be in the sky and people are gonna be like, oh my God, they're here. It's like on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Get us used to the idea, other people, hey, we're here, we're not hostile, we're here to help, or we're here to enlighten, or we're here to, bring a new wave of life for you, because that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't think.
There's a I think it'll explode into kind of like a golden age, like after we have some kind of information to do certain things with. And something that you touched on where you mentioned the individual, like it's going to happen on an individual basis. It seems like they're kind of like revealing themselves, but at the same time giving us plausible deniability, like being able to say, I don't think that's real, or that's because they're not forcing it on us. Because a forceful way would be kind of like, we're here, what are you going to do about it, kind of thing, which is not necessarily the best way, in my opinion, to do it, because then, we're a shoot first, ask questions later type of people, so it's just not that we could, ever do anything to them, but at the same time, it's not, it would be very easy to paint the picture of them being the enemy, if they were to present themselves in such a way. And they have in certain scenarios, but usually those are like private, like over nuclear bases and things like that, where, people are doing things they shouldn't be doing, and then they show up and intervene in certain circumstances. But with like the general populace, there seems to be a lot of positive. Not to say that there aren't negative stuff, because I know that there are people who have negative stories, negative experiences, things like that. But there have been people who have started saying that they had a negative experience only years later to get regressed. And then after they go into the regression, they realize it was their own beliefs and fears and other things that made the experience even more scary than it actually was. But I'm not saying that's everybody's case. I'm just saying that, you know, how many other scary cases were there where it was just a misunderstanding? But I do also believe that there are negative beings at the same time. We're in a duality. But yeah, I don't, and also to what you were saying, I don't trust people in government at all. Like I still kind of keep an eye, open, pay attention to what they say. And I hate politics, but I'm paying attention to this.
Me too. I hate politics. But I think that if enough people are having experiences, and on an individual basis, and I feel like a lot of people are coming together, like people are really starting to connect and share experiences and knowledge and bounce things off of each other. I know that's what I say to people in messaging, hey, I see you experience things too. That's great. Let's bounce things off of each other. There may be things that I don't, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Perception is everything, but it's going to take us connecting and uniting and raising our voices to get anything done. We're not going to be able to depend on these people in Congress to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. Because that is a good point, because it's just like every time something has come up and they try to do something, they keep saying that they're getting stonewalled.
That
After the private hearing that they had, they mentioned that they're now fully aware that the intelligence community is intentionally blocking them from information. So they know that there's a cover up 100% now. And it's like, of course, we knew that already. What are you going to do about it? Because it's like, as the bureaucracy and all this other stuff tries to figure out what they're going to do, like they can move most of the shit that they were hiding to begin with. Like, oh, you know about this location? All right, we already moved that shit. Because it's just like they're doing things illegally, which gives them the opportunity to be able to do anything they want at the snap of a finger, whereas we're still trying to like go by rules, laws, and we have to have this hearing, we have to have these briefings. And like, I personally agree. I'm like, we should be getting like SWAT teams and like, people kicking down doors to be like, if you know there's a cover up, that's illegal.
That's
You know
what,
what I mean? So
yeah,
we should be like arming and doing something, or having, and it's just this slow drool process. And
yeah,
uh, I have a theory. I think that is part, maybe not all of the reason, but part of the reason why maybe the beings are becoming more and more visible. Like, they're starting to be like, okay, you're not going to do it, then we're slowly going to start doing it ourselves. You know what I mean? Like,
that is
and then what are you going to do? You know
yes,
what I mean?
yep, that's exactly what, exactly. You're absolutely right. I think you
Yeah.
hit right on the head. That is why the individual basis, because people are going to go, what did I just experience? Now things are questioning. Now they're saying these things might be real. Okay, let me connect with other people, find out what's going on, because they're getting stonewalled. They're not going to stonewall anyone if the people start showing out in numbers and coming
Yeah.
together. They're not going to stonewall us because, number one, all this stuff that you're doing, all the research and all the secret agencies and all the moving the things, oh, that's there, let's move it here. How do you think they're doing that? Already, David Grush said it. How are they doing this? Misappropriating funds. Where do
Right.
you think they're getting those funds?
Pentagon. The day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My '03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere 300 million.
We know it's gone, but we don't know what they spent it on.
Jim Minery, a former Marine turned whistleblower, is risking his job by speaking out for the first time about the millions he noticed were missing from one defense agency's balance sheets. Minery tried to follow the money trail, even crisscrossing the country looking for records.
The director looked at me and he says, "Why do you care about this stuff?" It took me aback, My supervisor asked me why I care about doing a good job. So
He was reassigned and says officials then covered up the problem by just writing it off.
they got to cover it up. That's where the corruption comes in. They've got to cover up the fact that they can't do the job.
The Pentagon's Inspector General partially substantiated several of Minery's allegations, but could not prove officials tried to manipulate the financial statements. 20 years ago, Pentagon employee Franklin C. Spinney made headlines exposing what he calls the accounting games. He's still there, and although he does not speak for the Pentagon, he believes the problem has gotten worse.
Those numbers are pie in the sky. The books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan commanded the Navy's Second Fleet the first time Donald Rumsfeld served as Defense Secretary.
With good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayers.
In the 2.5 minutes since this report began, the Pentagon has spent nearly $2 million, and it may never know where 25% of those tax dollars went.
It's us. They're criminals. They shouldn't even be allowed to do it. Frankly, I'm pissed off. I think that's bullshit. And I think people should be pissed and out there saying, we're not going to deal with this anymore. Either be transparent and tell us what the hell is going on, or shit's going to get ugly.
Yeah.
That,
and
I don't understand. Like, it boggles my mind. Like, what could happen? Our lives could change for the better.
Hmm.
Not that, right? Anything but that. It just is crazy to me. But yeah, people are starting to come together. People are starting to get really impatient. And I think we can all feel it too. Like we're all on the edge of our seats, like waiting for something to happen. You know what I mean? Like we can all feel something's coming, something's happening. So there's a shift going on. But I think what we're not realizing is we're the ones that we're waiting for. We're on the edge of our seats because we're just waiting for ourselves. And I think we know that. It's
Yeah.
just timing. I think the timing has to be right. Whatever it is,
Right.
starting to come together, I think. Like the dominoes are falling. So,
Yeah. There's a lot of mediums, channelers, and even people within who claim to be former intelligence agents, which I never fully believe them, but you know, they could still be active. Who knows? But um, they're all starting to say that there's this weird time frame thing that's happening, that like around the next few years something's going to happen, kind of thing. They're like alluding to that.
I think the dialogue we're having now in this country, even with the recent legislation that passed through the legislature and is on its way up to the president's desk, even with that, we're kind of preparing the U.S. population, at least, and by extension, the world population, into that reality that there is a presence here, and that we need to explain this presence. Because if they show up and we continue to do what we did before in previous decades, and they show up, there will be mass panic. But if you understand that these are real, and we have 5 years from 2022, well, maybe now 4 years, if they come in 2027, for the U.S. government to prepare the people about what is up there. And in many ways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do. And so I think that dialogue has happened within inside the government, in certain areas inside the government, that we need to prepare. And that's why in 2017, that set a clock of 10 years. And why Lou Elizondo earlier in this year said, just find a hobby for 5 years, and it'll all be out in 5 years. And he said that this year, so that was 2027. And I would say I've heard 2027 in a kind of an official capacity that I can't reveal. So I think I would say that people in the government are aware of something happening, and that there's limited time, a few more years to prepare the people. And that's what's ramping up this acceleration from the previous 7 decades of not even acknowledging it to now we are acknowledging it at a faster and faster pace.
And another thing is just that, with the whole us rising up and standing up for ourselves, there are other countries that are doing it. It may not be UFO related, but they're rising up. Like look at Germany and France, and it's like they're not really showing that at all in the mainstream media. You're finding that out on like TikTok, and you have to look for it to actually see it. But France and they're getting pissed about the farmers. I don't know if you've seen that, and they actually have like, it looks like half the country just like parking their tractor machines because they're tired of politicians dictating like what they can and can't do with their farms, and what they're going to take and what they're going to use from them. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, they're showing up to these government establishment buildings and like dumping like manure and hay, and like they're not, you don't see any police force there like stopping them, like walking into McDonald's and just throwing hay. And it's just like, we have to do that. Like, what is it going to take for us to do it? Because it's just like Americans, a lot of us complain, but a lot of us also don't do anything about it. And because I see people complain all the time, and I know this is small scale, but this is how much power we have. I just read a friend of mine posted on Facebook that everyone who worked at a particular Dollar Tree just quit at the same time, and they ended up having to close the store. And I'm like, that's what we got to do. Like, what are they going to do? And Billy Carson says this all the time. If everyone just decided, I'm not going into work
I say,
until, like,
yes, yes,
what are they going to do? Fire you? Like,
that's
what are
what,
the landlords going to do? They're going to kick you out of your house when everyone's quitting. They can't do anything because it's like a domino effect that affects everything else. And it's just like, it's going to put everything to a halt.
yeah,
And even the people that claim that there are powers that be at the top, right?
mhm,
Even them need us little ant workers to do stuff, because if we don't do anything, they don't get anything. If we don't have farmers farming, they don't get food. If we don't have people like doing the smaller jobs, nothing gets done. So it's just like one of those things. And I think that's
yeah,
something that needs to happen. I see it kind of like bubbling up, like
yeah,
it'll eventually happen, but it's just one of those things.
yeah,
But
sure.
quick question for you, just to bring it back to the weird shit.
Yeah,
um,
weird
have
shit.
you mentioned last episode that you've had an experience, at least one experience, where there was a shadow being in your house?
Yes. Well, shadow beings started when I was really young. Uh,
So they followed you all around throughout your life. That
yes.
makes sense. Me too. Okay.
Yep. So I was like 4 when I first saw the shadow being. And I remember telling my mom, and they always I used to say that I had an imaginary friend, and everybody just thought it was an imaginary friend. And as I grew older, I began to understand more and more what was going on.
Right.
Um, but the one that was in my house, um, I was in my kitchen, or I was in my living room first. And I remember getting up and I went into the kitchen, and you could see the reflection of the kitchen because I had turned off the TV, and you can
Mm-hmm.
see the reflection of the kitchen in the TV that was off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking by it, and I thought I saw something there. And I remember going into my kitchen, and then it's just weird because I turn around and there was a silhouette of a man with a hat on, and he walked out the sliding glass door, out to my backyard, and just dissipated as he walked away.
And you said it was a cowboy hat, right?
Cowboy hat, yes.
And that picture behind you, is there a cowboy hat on that person?
Yes, there is. Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
That's interesting because I saw it earlier when you were
Yeah.
moving the phone. So I was like, oh, it immediately made me think of that story. And have you
Yeah.
seen any more of them since I last
Yeah.
spoke with you?
All the time. It's really crazy. Like, it's not something that I just like go around telling people because it's
Mm-hmm.
sexy, but it's something that has been my reality since since I can remember, I feel like. And I understand, like you said, like how people say they have bad experiences and stuff like that. Because when I was 4 years old, I remember like my first recollection of seeing it. I was scared too. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what it was, and I remember I ran out of my apartment because my mom, we lived in an apartment building. She went to go get the laundry, which was like a different room downstairs. And I was 4. I was in my room, and I turned around, and there what he was. It was the same guy, and he with the hat, and he stood there, and it was just standing there. And I remember I couldn't move, and it was like I was frozen,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like forever, but I know it's probably like a seconds.
Right.
Finally, like being able to like scream, like cry, and doing it like and like curdling scream. And I remember running out, and I was just crying like someone's here and someone's here. And I ran out, and I started banging on the door of the lady across the hall. And my mom came running up because of course she heard me in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? I said, there's somebody in there, Mom. And she was like, what? And I remember she went in there with a bat, and she came out and she said, "There's nobody in here, honey." And it's like from that day on, it's just become something that slowly I just got used to. And I can
Right.
why people would be scared, because at first I didn't understand what I was experiencing.
Right.
So things that people don't understand, often they fear them. You know,
Right.
sometimes something that looks scary isn't. Sometimes something that doesn't look scary, you should be scared of it.
Right.
You can't judge a book by its cover. It's cliche, it's an old saying, but it's doesn't make it any less true.
True.
Um,
And I have a friend, he's one of the co-hosts, name is George. And on our combined channel, that's with John and Danielle, and he's had experiences with shadow beings as well, and they would terrify him. And in one particular case, he tried, and this is what I think you should try doing too if it ever happens to you, if you haven't done it already. But he saw this being; it was like a tall shadow being, and he said that he then sent it like unconditional love. He just sent it love, and then it shrunk down into the form of like a child. And then he was like, he started to actually see its like form, and he was like, oh shit. And then he like waved at it, and it waved back. And
yeah,
it was just, and this realization that he got was just like, they're not all scary, they're not all bad. And,
I love mine.
and
I really do.
yeah,
Like, I don't know what I would do if I didn't see them anymore. Like
right.
that, they're like family. Like I
Yeah.
really like BFF, like BFF out, like it's that deep of a connection. It
I
really,
think that, I think that they're important because when we start to learn more about this, like the term they're using now, NHIs, non-human intelligence, there are people like Chris Bledsoe and some other like abductees who are talking about these beings that are people will still call them ET, but the thing is like when Chris Bledsoe describes the beings, he's like they're like transparent also. They're
yes,
like they have a craft and everything, but he's like when I'm in front of them, they're kind of transparent, like especially the little ones that I saw, he's like I could see through their legs. And it's just like, how do we know we're not talking about similar things when we're talking about shadow beings? Maybe those are also NHIs that are, kind of bleeding into our dimension and we're starting to see them. Or people who are more, and this is, I think, more of the case also, but people who are more open, or just, it's kind of like an ability, a muscle. Like the more you use it, even if you don't realize you're doing it, the more you start to see them and they start to become more apparent to you. And just like, there are some people who have UFO experiences, don't see anything, but then the person next to them saw it. They're like, you didn't see that? And they're like, no. And even though they were looking in the same direction, that I think they have the ability to also appear before particular people and not others. And I think it works both ways. Some people are just not open enough, or maybe they're blocking themselves from seeing it.
yeah,
And also maybe it's more of an intentional thing where they don't want a particular person to see it and they want others to see it. I think it's kind of both, but I think it's important, and that's why I brought up shadow beings, because I
yeah,
think it's starting to be more or less similar or the same thing or
yeah.
in the same category at least.
I've watched them go from a shadowy figure to a bright light figure.
Hmm.
Literally go from that to that, and go from a big shadow to a small to right into the ground to gone. Um, but yeah, I see them all the time. I see them above the house. I see them coming down. I catch them all the time. I have
And
tons of footage of them. Um,
and Chris Bledsoe mentioned seeing them and seeing shadow beings too, waking up in the middle of the night, seeing a shadow being that led him into the woods. And then he met an actual being, not that they weren't, but like someone who had form and more of
yeah,
a face and was a woman. But I think it's all interconnected, and I think that it's important to talk about because it's like I know people have weird, some people don't want to talk about it. Like you mentioned, you don't just bring it up to anybody. But I believe you because I've seen it, and they're capturing them on camera now too. And they look weird when you see them on camera. It's almost surreal, where it's like, whoa, is that fake? What is that? Like that looks weird. And it's just, yeah, that's what it looks like in person too. Like it's
That,
just weird.
like you said, it's like bleeding through, coming from another dimension because they are
Yeah.
dimensional and they do travel interdimensionally. And when you're coming from a different dimension, like we're in a 3D and they're coming from 4D, it bleeds through. So you're only seeing parts of it, kind of, it's like
Right.
up and distorted too. Plus,
Yeah.
they have technology that literally distorts their surroundings so that you don't see them.
Right.
It's a mixture of the two. But yeah, it's crazy. Definitely,
Yeah.
you feel the energy. Like there's
Yeah.
no it, it's and it lasts for days. For days,
Yeah.
days, yeah.
You mentioned before, you mentioned liking Dr. Stephen Greer. And I know you're aware of like CE5, and I can't remember if I asked this before, but I wanted to ask you, have you ever tried CE5 yourself
Yeah.
or?
I actually have the app and I really just use it for the tones that are on there.
Yeah.
Um, I really do wholeheartedly believe in frequencies, vibrations, and tones. It's a constant message that I get from these beings. It's not like, they're sitting there like talking to me. It's telepathic and I get the message and I'm
Right.
not that gets this message. But yeah, I've tried to do it with people, but it's like everybody, I don't know, people don't show up or there's something going on. And honestly, um, I've done it with my sister actually. Me and my sister did it once, and this was last summer. And it's funny because that day I remember waking up and it was her birthday. And that's why I was taking her out. And my family knows about the things that I experience ever, like I said, ever since I was a kid. It was like my imaginary friends and it sounds crazy. Yeah, Danielle and her imaginary friends.
They should take you more seriously now with everything that's been happening.
They really do. My mom's mad because she doesn't see them like I do. She's like, "How come I can't see them?" She's always trying, and she's like, "It's not fair." And I'm like, "Well, you got not there for your entertainment, like."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I took her out and I took her to a crystal shop beforehand, and I got a really nice piece of like long crystal quartz and a bunch of stuff, and we got, we meditated and stuff, and we went by the beach. I live on Long Island, so we're right on the beach. We went on this cliff. So it's like a cliff, and there was only like, I would say like a 12-foot drop. It really wasn't like a high cliff. It was like a small little ledge, and we put it out there, and it was in like the middle of nowhere. There's nothing. It's dark, and right off of there is the water. And water is a wonderful conduit. So,
Right.
beautiful, it's peaceful. We were sitting there, and it's funny, let me just rewind for a minute. Before we went out, they told me that we were going to have a trippy night. And I said that to her. I said, I just want to tell you that they want you to know that we're going to have a really trippy night. And let me tell you, so I actually posted some pictures of our experience. I had never experienced that many things in one night like that. It's like they gave us a light show or something like that because it's
Yeah.
birthday. It was amazing. We saw huge, like these two, it looked like a huge ship just go right across the sky. These things that look like feathers, these white feathers that dusted across this. It was amazing. Huge triangular, it looked like three stars, but it actually was moving
Yeah.
thing and stuff, and it was pretty wild. I mean, we saw some amazing things. Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's the thing. And a lot of people who have close encounters with a lot of these beings, there seems to be this, it's a pattern that I've noticed. And it's not that they don't care about other people or anything, because
Right.
there are cases where they show or explain that they do. But a lot of the times, the people they communicate with are family. People are saying that in like hypnotherapy cases that the person biologically may be a human, but like the soul or the essence of the person comes from where that civilization, the ones flying the craft, are from in particular.
Absolutely.
And it keeps being brought up over and over again. Chris Bledsoe says it. Other people have mentioned it, and it's just this pattern thing. And I think that's the case. That all these people being visited or seeing things all have some kind of relationship somehow, and each of those particular beings, races, whatever you want to call it, interact in particular ways, in certain ways, and make their presence known. So that is interesting. And that is an awesome birthday gift. That's pretty cool.
I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And we did the CE5. She downloaded the app and we played the tones and, we thought about where we were.
Mm-hmm.
I think of, the universe at first, and then I think of the earth. And then I think of, the continents, and I think of North America. And then I think of, New York. And then it's almost like I'm envisioning what it would look like on Google Earth. And I'm
Right.
zooming in and zooming in until I get to where I am.
Right.
And it was great. I mean, I, it, honestly, I feel like, yes, what I was going to say before was that I really don't mind doing like meditation and connecting and like I guess you would say a CE5 type of thing, on my own. I
Right.
definitely cherish my like alone time. I really like being by myself. I tend to have the best experiences that way, but it's true. When I was with her, and because her energy, we were both open
Vibing.
and vibing, right? And everything just went so right. And I think it definitely made it more intense knowing that it was both of us and both our energy there helping that along, for sure.
Right.
So just imagine, more than one person and how that would be.
Yeah.
That,
I'm so impatient. Um, I want something to happen.
I
Like,
know.
and I do have my own experiences, but sometimes they're spread apart, so they may not happen for a while. Um, and I recently had an experience with I was sleeping in my room, and I think my girlfriend was up. She was in another room, and I was sleeping, and it started off like a dream at first, and I was in like a dark room, and I don't even know if it was this room that I was seeing or if it was a slightly out of body at first,
Mhm.
but then I felt like someone was coming, like a presence of someone coming into the room. And then it felt really, really strong. And then it felt like the presence was trying to come through me. And I don't know how else to explain that. Like it felt like it was trying to talk through me. And it felt like so much information that I couldn't make out heads or tails of what was trying to be said, except for one word. And I haven't said this on a podcast yet, but it just kept saying over and over and over again, connecting, connecting, connecting. And I felt like my body was saying that. And it wasn't like I was afraid. It was more like I was overwhelmed because it was just, I didn't know what to do with the experience. It was kind of like, it came on so abruptly. It was just like getting hit by a truck or something. Like, so I kind of wanted it to stop because it's just like, hey, I had no warning that this was going to happen, and this was just okay. This is happening now, and I remember that the only thing I can think of, because I was trying to think of how I could ask for help, was I thought of my grandmother who passed away. I was like, hey, can you help me, please? And then as soon as I asked for help, Josie walks into the room and she's like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? I heard you screaming for help, which is weird because I didn't hear myself screaming for help. It just, in my mind, all I was doing was saying, connecting, connecting, connecting. And that voice that I was hearing didn't sound like my voice or my inner monologue. Like, how we all have an inner voice, inner monologue. It didn't sound like that. It sounded like another voice. And it felt like it was trying to establish something, and maybe I wasn't ready, or maybe I didn't do it right. I have no idea, but it like freaked me out. And the first thing I told her when I snapped out of it, I told her I felt like I was channeling because I was different. It was not something I experienced. I had an experience similar, but this was like the strongest feeling I've ever had in a while. Like it was kind of strange,
And
but
doing right before that,
I was asleep
you were
because
just
at first it started off like a dream. Oh, and also to mention when it was happening, it felt like I was trying to wake myself up or move my body and I couldn't. It turned into like kind of a sleep paralysis situation. So when it was happening and it felt like my body was like shaking, I could feel my body just doing this like very, very like hard and like just again intense flow of energy coming through. And I just it's like it wanted to, it's kind of like mediumship in a way. Like I don't know how to explain
absolutely, yeah.
how it felt. I just know that it was just strong. Like it's it's a feeling. Like how do I know that it was trying to convey a lot of information? I don't know. I just know that it was.
Yeah.
Like I could feel information trying to come through. I just didn't know how to, let it out. And it's almost like if I let it out, it could start speaking and it wouldn't be me speaking kind of thing. It felt like that, but I didn't allow it, or at least I didn't know how to. So it just, you know,
That's amazing.
I just had Josie kind of like shake me and then it snapped me out of it. And I was like, whoa. And I told her, like, I think I was channeling because I was different. That was weird.
I'm just
But
not sure what it was, what events that transpired, and then you went to sleep, and then you had this dream. Like, what was that? Maybe you should try to sharpen that a little bit.
I
You know?
know I've been slacking with meditation. I haven't been doing that. I'm guilty of not been doing that
Yeah,
lately.
I get guilty of that too because life gets in the way. That's part.
Yeah,
Know that the rat race. We can't focus on ourselves because we're so busy with life and everything else. So yeah,
it happens. But I have another question and then maybe a final question, and we can bring it to a close. But this is just for the people that don't know. And it's something that my friend brought up once. And he asked if doing CE5, do you think it's safe or is there anything? Have you ever had a negative experience doing CE5? Have you ever had anything bad happen during a CE5 or anything that surprised you in a scary way or anything like that for the people who are new or thinking about trying it?
no, I honestly have never had a bad experience. The only time I've ever had a honestly, the only time I've ever had a bad experience in connecting with things is opening. You have to be careful what you're opening up yourself to. Um,
Right.
just be, I'm open and I'm wide open here, and you have to make sure that you have you're not bringing any negativity with you.
Yeah.
That and fear.
Like messing with a Ouija board.
Yeah, you know what? I This honestly, one of the negative things that I've experienced has to do with that. Um,
Hmm.
but when you bring fear and negativity into it, and you don't let it be known that you are non-hostile and that you are, love, light, that only good can enter your space, and that you're not
Right.
love and light, and that all that is pure is what you're open to.
Right.
Because you're literally opening up your heart and your soul to let your mind to inviting things in.
Other things.
Yeah, so you have to be very careful what you're inviting. So for people who are never done this before, just be careful and set your intentions, know what you're getting into, and what you're how you want to be getting into it. Put that in the forefront of your mind. What do I want?
Right.
What out of this? What am I doing this for? Positive, good energy. That's it.
Right. And a lot of things that I've come across in regards to doing these kinds of things and practices and meditation and what they mention, especially in hypnotherapy, is that we all have spirit guides, all of us, and the number of spirit guides we have varies from person to person because some guides are good at particular things. And when another guide is needed for a particular issue, they step in and they switch, they swap. And they mention that, when we do things like this, or to ask them for help, because if we don't ask them for help, it's not that they don't protect you or anything, but usually there's a very strong respect for free will and even experiencing negative things, because they're not going to take that from you because it's still an experience that you could grow from. So it's like when you ask them to step in and protect you, or they're like, okay, like he asked and he uses free will to ask, she uses her free will to ask, I'm going to step in now, and now you've given me that space. So that's another thing that I add to people, or I tell people to do, or just
Yeah.
to do it.
I've asked them
Because
to hear me, I've said, please don't, like, if I'm outside at night and I'm, meditating and listening to my tones or whatever, and because they've done that to me before, and they scared the crap out of me so bad, like like screamed out loud and ran in the house and closed my curtains. I was like, like, why did you do that? Don't come out when I'm out there in the dark, like, hey, like,
yeah,
that's gonna scare the crap out of me. Like, please don't do,
right.
like, they will. They don't want to scare you. Like, they're trying to connect with you. So if you don't do certain things, put it out there. Let them
Yeah.
know for sure. Free
There are
will.
there are near death experiencers who have become acutely aware that we have spirit guides, and they may not have realized it before, but then they have the NDE and they're like, oh yeah, we all have spirit guides. You'll hear a lot of near death experiencers mention that, because they're like, oh, I met my spirit guide when I left my body, and they introduced themselves, they had a name and everything, and that they're real. They're like, oh yeah, they are real. They are a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the thing. It's just once, and I always tell people this, it's like once you have your own experience, you can't take it back. And there are some people who may not accept the experience, and they might try to hide from themselves and pretend like they didn't see it because they're not ready or they can't handle it, but that doesn't make it go away. Saying the sky is red when it's blue doesn't make it red, like you can still deny it as long as you want, but everyone in their own time, I think. And I think that it's starting to increase now. And
Yeah.
John had shared uh, a post, a Reddit post recently, that they were showing that over 60% believe that, the government is hiding all of this stuff from them. And it's just to show you like how much more the perspective has shifted since like many, many years ago. People are more open to this stuff now. People are talking about this now. There are YouTube channels that have millions of followers talking about this now, and
Yeah.
people are like waking up to it. So it's just one of those things. And now they have people who have experiences, and people now, and like are bringing up, like they'll in front of crowds, how many people have had like a UFO or a spiritual experience, and like people like raise their hands now, like so many people. And
That
so many people have kept quiet about it for years because they were worried about the stigma or what people thought about them. Have you faced, I guess that's my last question for you for right now, like have you faced some of that within your own family? Has anyone shunned you or disbelieved you, or
I not in my family. I have a great supportive family who is very open to things like this.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Me
But
too.
yeah, it is. It's really great because you can talk to people, your family about it. And like, I had a hard time with it at first too. When I was younger, I remember crying about it, saying, why am I like this? How come I see these things? Why can't I just be like everybody else and not see these things? Like, it is, it's a struggle. You have to wrap your brain around it. I really don't have the stigma, right? But other people, it took me a really long time to come out and like come forward with it like I am right now. with you. If this was, I would say even 2 years ago, I would never do something like this ever.
Yeah. But it does help. Helps a lot of people because people are coming out all over and it makes them more comfortable to especially put themselves in front of a camera to talk about it. And I think that's how the awakening is like going or starting or in the middle of,
Yeah.
by just talking about it and then giving people that space to share their experiences. And then so many other people are like, oh my God, that happened to me. And maybe that person never talked about it for years or still hasn't talked about it. And you saying that gave them the validation that they weren't crazy, you know? So,
Amen. I'm telling you, like, I think exactly. I think we hit everything on the head. Like, this is why this is happening. This is why everybody's having experiences. Things that we were told that are, were um, stories or myths are real. Like, these things are real. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like, reincarnation is real. Other dimensions are real. Other worldly beings, they're real. Like, these things are real. Invisibility is real.
right.
um Everything paranormal is real, and it's all connected.
Yeah.
And once we get to the truth, and I think that's where we're on our way there, and I think once we get to that truth, and we will get to it, it will set us free.
Right.
And that makes me smile.
Yeah.
'Cause
Me too. I can't wait. Yeah. Everybody's feeling it now. It's super tangible. It's in the air. It's hard to describe, but a lot of people.
grounds, that's all we need. We need to come together on common grounds. We don't need to agree on everything. It's okay not to agree on everything. That's what makes us people. That's what makes us different and unique. We're supposed to have different thoughts and opinions.
Right.
Hey, we can respect our differences. We have to come together on our common grounds, and it doesn't have to be just about, we want to know about UFOs. It could be about a lot of things, but we
Yeah.
won't get anywhere if we don't try
Right.
that together. And I think one more thing before we go, I think everybody is hell bent, and the reason why we can't come together is because we're hanging on to our egos so much, and everybody wants to be the everybody wants to be, I'm the one that started, and I've got this and I've got that and I'm starting this. And there are so many, I think there are a lot of people that are doing the same thing, and instead of joining together, we've got like a bunch of groups trying to do the same thing. And the thing is, we're all leaders, all of us, because
Right.
nothing in history has ever been done or brought about the change or a country by one person. It took armies, navies, secret services. It took people in numbers to bring about that change. It's going to take
Right.
all of us. We all play a part, like you said. It's like a machine. If one of the, if you're, we're like a car. If one part in your car isn't working, the car isn't going to work right.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Dead car, two dead batteries won't start a car. A car without a battery won't. It doesn't matter. It's not going to work. So we all play a part. And if we don't do our parts, it's not going to work.
And that's why I completely believe that there are positive beings helping us.
Yes.
There's another person, Jason Shirka had brought this up. He had mentioned that these beings kind of see us kind of like a body. Like if you look at the human body and, if there's something wrong with your pinky toe, it's still a part of your body. It's connected to you and you're going to try to help it, which is why I think they're coming at a time where we need assistance, and we're getting it, I think, behind the scenes in certain ways, because look at what we're doing to the planet, to each other, and it's just like we need some kind of coming together thing to happen, and that's what's happening. And
Look
I
out for
think,
him. Like,
yeah, and they
try.
haven't blown us up or anything, so I think that's because people say, well, they need the planet. I'm like, yeah, but I'm sure if they wanted to, they could make everyone disappear without touching the planet. You know what I mean? Like,
They could end us like that. What? That makes no
yeah. So
none at all. That's
yeah,
the
we're here for a reason,
right.
and not to say that there aren't beings that wouldn't do that, but I think
Right.
that we're also protected in various ways. So I think that's a thing. But I wanted to thank you for jumping on today. I appreciate you taking the time out. I appreciate you guys for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And until then, we'll catch you guys on the other side.